This is not just a chocolate chip cookie with an extra step thrown in and some weak chocolate flavor. This is a gourmet cookie with real chewy chocolate chip cookie dough and real brownie batter in the mix. It took us a lot of tests because brownie batter and cookie dough do not behave the same and they don't bake the same. But in the end, we ended up with a brownie layer that stays fudgy and rich and a cookie that's sturdy enough to hold everything together, but stays soft and chewy. So real brownie batter starts with real chocolate. You can use either 10 ounces of a chopped semi-sweet or even a dark baking bar, or you can use 10 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips. That's a 1 2/3 cup. You don't have a scale. And we'll melt this with some butter. This is 1/3 cup. It's like 5 1/3 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I cut it into pieces just so it melts nicely. We're going to pop this in the microwave. We'll just heat it in like 25-second intervals, making sure we're stirring in between until both the chocolate and butter are completely smooth and melted. Okay, so you can see it's completely smooth and melted. It gets a little bit thick, but that's fine so long as there's no discernible butter pieces or chocolate pieces and everything's nice and smooth. Let's set this to the side for a couple minutes. Grab yourself a large mixing bowl. We're going to add 1 1/4 cups of granulated sugar. We're also going to add 3 large eggs. Crack these in a separate dish. 2, 3. All right, these can all go in with the sugar at once. We're also going to add some vanilla extract, just a teaspoon of vanilla. And we'll add our salt here as well. This is 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Sprinkle that in. Okay, here I like to use my electric mixer because if you've made any of my other brownie recipes, you know that vigorously whisking together the eggs and sugar is really important to not only get that nice brownie texture, but also to kind of get that nice crackle on top. We're not going to exactly have a crackle on top, but it is going to actually look like a brownie when the cookies are finished baking. So for this step, we're going to beat this very well. I like to beat it on high speed for like 2 to 3 minutes until everything is lightened in color. I do always start on low speed, and then once everything's combined, we'll gradually crank it up to high. Okay, so this was like 2.5 minutes of mixing, and you can see it's thickened. It's a nice pale yellow. So we're going to now grab our chocolate mixture. We're going to add this in, all of it in. Things are already smelling so good. It's pretty thick, no worries. It's usually a little less thick if you're using chopped chocolate, but with this recipe, chocolate chips really work just fine here. Still makes for a really nice gourmet cookie. We're just going to stir this together on low speed until everything's nicely combined. We want a nice uniform batter. Okay, so here I'm going to just do a quick scrape of the sides and bottom of the bowl. I just want to make everything's nice and uniform before we add our dry ingredients, because we still haven't added any flour. And there's really not that much flour that goes into a brownie batter. There shouldn't be. So I will just sift these ingredients right into the bowl because there's not a lot. It's 2/3 cup of an all-purpose flour. And then I use a 1/3 cup of natural cocoa powder. I haven't tried this with Dutch cocoa. I suspect it would probably be okay, but I haven't tried it yet. And then we do use a small amount of baking powder. So baking powder tends to puff things up a little bit. We're just using 1/4 teaspoon. It helps really make the brownie layer work with the cookie dough while still maintaining its true texture. So we'll just sift these in. If you don't have a sifter, just put everything in a separate mixing bowl and whisk them together and then add them to your dough. See, sometimes that cocoa powder likes to clump a little bit. So great opportunity to just work that through your sifter. I just use my spatula here to just fold everything together gently now. And then once I have everything mostly combined, I'll add the mini chocolate chips. Technically, these are optional, but you can never have too much chocolate. And remember, these are like a nice gourmet cookie. So a little bit of mini chocolate chips really adds a nice touch. This is just 2/3 cup, and we'll stir these in. So we'll finish stirring everything together. Get those mini chocolate chips nicely distributed. Make sure we don't have any dry spots remaining. Okay, so everything's nicely combined. So this dough is going to need to chill. So let me grab my Nemesis plastic wrap. We're going to pop this in the fridge. You can get away with chilling it for as little as 1 hour. It's still a little bit soft and sticky and can still be a bit difficult to work with, but we've done it a bunch of times after an hour. It does work. But if I want to make things easier on myself, I will prepare the dough even further in advance for the purpose of filming today, just because I wanted to keep rolling. I made a batch last night that we're going to be using today, so that dough will be a little bit more firm. But we still need to make our chocolate chip cookie dough. So that also is going to need about 30 minutes in the fridge. You could also chill that one longer. Overnight is fine. So if you're trying to keep rolling, things usually work out decently. You can chill your brownie dough, make your cookie dough, chill that, do some dishes, and then usually you're about ready to roll. Okay, brownie batter's chilling. Let's make our chocolate chip cookie layer. This comes together a lot like a standard chocolate chip cookie. I did have to make some modifications. It's slightly sturdier, but still very soft and chewy. These cookies bake up a little bit thicker, which gives them more of a gourmet feel. Like you could definitely imagine these being sold in a bakery. So we start with 1 cup of softened unsalted butter. You find my sugar here. You'll need 1 cup of firmly packed brown sugar. You can use light brown or a blend of light and dark brown sugar. That's usually my preference, but I'm just using light brown today. And we need 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. So you could absolutely make today's recipe in the stand mixer with a paddle attachment if you'd like for this cookie dough. I'm just going to be using my electric mixer again. And we'll beat everything together until it is smooth and lightened and creamy. Now to make this dough a little bit easier to work with, I like the butter to be softened but not melty. It's okay if it even still has a little bit of a chill to it. And we do really want to cream the butter and sugar together. Start on low speed and then increase it to high and mix it for like 2 to 3 minutes. That way you get some air bubbles worked into the dough that are really crucial for helping give us that texture we're looking for. So this is a nice, well-creamed cookie dough. We've really beat together that butter and sugar really well. So it does take a couple minutes, but it's important for building structure. Another thing we're going to do to add a little structure is we're going to add our eggs one at a time and beat well after each addition. So these are 2 large eggs, one at a time. Beat this very well. I took a risk with the first egg, but I'm not gonna do that with the second. It's okay if these eggs are not completely at room temperature. Mine happened, ooh, got a little shell in there. Mine happened to be room temperature, but if yours are still cold, that's actually okay with this recipe. Number 2, just going to scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl real quickly. So this chocolate chip cookie dough is a little bit different from some of the others I made. It's a little bit less sweet. There's 2 main reasons for this. One is to make it a little sturdier and softer so it holds the brownie base nicely together, but also we didn't want a cookie that was super sweet because that would just be overkill with the brownie. Brownies are naturally sweeter, and it was just going to be a lot if they were both very sweet. So we are going to add a lot of depth of flavor by adding a heavy pour of vanilla extract. So a tablespoon of vanilla extract. This tablespoon is going to add a lot of depth, and it helps emphasize the sweetness that is there without making the cookie like a sugar bomb. Let's go ahead and mix this in. This is looking pretty good. We'll slide this out of the way for a moment and grab a separate mixing bowl for our dry ingredients. We start with 3 2/3 cups of all-purpose flour, quite a bit more flour than we used in the brownies. We're also going to add a tablespoon of cornstarch. Again, important for that structure and for the softness of the cookie. These are really soft and chewy cookies. We'll also add 2 teaspoons of baking powder and just 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And then finally 1 teaspoon of table salt, or a very fine sea salt would be okay as well. All right, let's whisk everything together. You want all of those ingredients well incorporated with the flour so you don't have any, pockets of baking powder or anything like that. Since we're using a much larger amount of flour, I do prefer to whisk it rather than sift it. Let's bring back our butter and egg mixture and just gradually add the dry ingredients to the wet. And you do want to do this in, at least 3 parts and stir until well combined after each addition because the dough can be a little bit dry. If you try to add all of the flour at once, it's just going to be really difficult for you to work with, and then you're going to be mad at me, and I'm just gonna say, look, I told you, add it gradually. But I get the impatience factor of it. I'm not really patient when it comes to my cookie dough either. Just do all the rest. Always check your dough with your spatula. Scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl, especially if you're using a stand mixer. We want to make sure there are no pockets of flour remaining, which there are quite a few here. So I'm just going to give it a nice stir, and then I'll give it another quick stir with my electric mixer. We should be in pretty good shape. Looking pretty good here. You can see our dough. So let's add our chocolate chips because it's a chocolate chip cookie base. You'll need 1 cup of semi-sweet chips, and let's just fold these in. It's a pretty stiff dough. Just do your best. No escapees. We've prepped both of our doughs now. This one is done. It also needs to chill. So once again, we'll grab this plastic wrap, cover it up. This dough needs 30 minutes minimum. Other dough needs an hour minimum. As I mentioned, both can be made in advance, and I actually prepped a brownie dough and a cookie dough last night, so we can just keep on rolling. Let me get a couple things out of the way and let's start assembling our cookies. But first, get your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Your oven should be reaching 350 at this point, or at 350. Let's talk about our dough. So my brownie dough has been chilling overnight, so it's going to be pretty firm. It makes it easier to work with, but yours may not be quite this firm. We're going to take about 2 tablespoons of brownie batter dough. If you're weighing it, for nice uniform cookies. That's about 40 grams of dough. And I am gonna weigh it because I want them to look pretty. Also, Nikki says I'm really bad at eyeballing what 2 tablespoons looks like. So 40 grams here. And then we'll do about 2 tablespoons of our chocolate chip dough. So we have 80 grams of cookie dough total. So what I do is I just kind of sandwich these together first, and then I rip them in half and then just switch. And this is going to ensure that you have brownie batter and cookie dough in every bite. And then I roll them into a smooth ball. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, some of the appeal of these is when the swirl's kind of chaotic looking rather than like checkerboard looking. But by doing this, you get both flavors in every bite. These cookies do require space on the baking sheet. You want to give them at least 2 inches apart. Baking your cookies too close together is going to cause them to just bake into one big flat messy mess. I don't even want to say cookie because it's not quite a cookie. And if your dough seems crumbly at all, your brownie one, you know, if you made it in advance, just press it together. It'll come together. It should come together very easily. So let's take these, and once again, I'm just going to press them together, break them in half, flip one side, and then roll it into a nice round ball. The brownie dough is pretty firm the next day. I prefer this to it being on the softer side. These are pretty big cookies, so I'm going to bake only 5 to a baking sheet. I'm gonna pop these in the center rack of my 350 Fahrenheit preheated oven. They typically need to bake for about 13 minutes, but of course, know your oven. Yours may need a smidge more or a smidge less time. You're looking for the edges to be set and the chocolate chip cookie part to be turning a very, very light golden brown. Don't overbake these or your chocolate chip cookie part is going to be dry and crumbly. These look beautiful. One thing I like to do is take a couple of extra chocolate chips, and while these cookies are fresh out of the oven, like within a minute or two, I will press some extra chocolate chips right into the surface. Just makes them look a little bit prettier. Now these can be a little bit delicate while they're still warm, so we're going to let them cool on the baking sheet for at least 5 to 10 minutes before carefully removing them to a cooling rack to cool completely. If you really want to take these to the next level, while they're still warm, go ahead and sprinkle a little bit of flaky sea salt on them. It really adds just that extra gourmet touch. Another thing to know about these cookies, when they're warm, they are super gooey. Like they are just, you're gonna think they're not even baked, but they are. Once they cool completely, they lose that gooiness, but they retain that nice chewy softness. So that is how you make these Brookie cookies. It took me so many times to get it right, but I'm really happy with where we ended up, and I think you're going to love these. If you try them, let me know what you think. I really do always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. All right, this is gonna be a gooey mess, but we're not gonna wait any longer. Oh, these are so good. We did such a good job with these. Gosh, they're still good when they're not warm too. These are amazing. Anything else? My voice is still funny, isn't it? Oops.
I hope someone notices the times when your oven versus your microwave, which neither are right.
So awkward. I cannot remember anything at all. Oops. Still super soft. What?
Oh, I'm so sorry. That was allowed.
Egg number 2. Oh, don't do anything. Okay.